Welcome everyone. Welcome to our second session of Culture Dose, Art for Wellbeing, presented as a collaboration between the Art Gallery of New South Wales and the Black Dog Institute. So my name's Danielle Galotta. I'm the Access Programs producer at the Gallery. And I've been working in the fields of access and inclusion and arts and health for the past 10 years, and collaborating with the Black Dog Institute, we are presenting this mindful experience for you. Before we start, we'd like to start off with a formal acknowledgement of country. We acknowledge the traditional owners on the land on which the Art Gallery of New South Wales and the Black Dog Institute stands. We acknowledge the Gadigal and the Bidigal peoples of the Eora Nation and pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging. And on such a beautiful winter's day, we're going to celebrate the public collection of the Art Gallery through 3 artworks.
Hello everyone. I'd also like to extend a warm welcome and thank you for joining our session of Culture Dose. I'm Catherine Boydell. I'm Professor of Mental Health at the Black Dog Mental Health Institute. And my program of research focuses on using the arts in the research process to create and produce research data and to communicate and share research findings using visual, performative, and literary genres. Culture Dose is based on the Arts on Prescription program, which is a collaboration between Danielle and the Art Gallery of New South Wales and myself and Black Dog Institute. And our research exploring the impact of the Arts on Prescription program showed significant increases in mental health and well-being and in a sense of community inclusion and connectedness. And based on these positive findings, we decided to extend the arts engagement program to the broader public in the form of Culture Dose. So thank you again for joining us. I'm going to be moderating the discussion this afternoon. So if you could please ensure that your video and microphone are off during the session, and you'll be invited to share your responses in the chat box. So you'll see that you have an option of responding only to the panelists, Danielle and I, or to all attendees if you want the entire group to view them. And I'll be reading out your comments and we can engage in a discussion in that way. And we also suggest that you might want to have a pencil, pen, or other materials present during the session in case you'd like to draw, doodle, and engage in any other creative activity during the session. As Danielle mentioned, our second session is Joy in Everyday Life. And to prepare for the session, we'd like you to engage with your senses and bodily experiences as these works will do. We really see this as a time to sort of take a little bit of time to yourself to observe and think about the familiar, some of the everyday activities that we engage in that often we never take the time to actually sit down and reflect on them. And so because these artworks are intended to provide an engagement session to really think about our senses and our bodily experiences, we thought we would begin with a brief meditative exercise. So we'd like you to begin by bringing attention into your body. You can close your eyes if that's comfortable for you. You can notice your body seated wherever you're seated, feeling the weight of your body on the chair, on the floor. Take a few deep breaths. And as you take a deep breath, bring in more oxygen, enlivening the body. And as you exhale, have a sense of relaxing more deeply. You can notice your feet on the floor. Notice the sensations of your feet touching the floor, the weight and pressure, vibration, heat. You can notice your legs against the chair, pressure, pulsing, heaviness, lightness. Notice your back against the chair. Bring your attention into your stomach area. If your stomach is tense or tight, let it soften. Take a breath. Notice your hands. Are your hands tense or tight? see if you can allow them to soften. Notice your arms. Feel any sensation in your arms. Let your shoulders be soft. Notice your neck and throat. Let them be soft. Relax. Soften your jaw. Let your face and facial muscles be soft. Then notice your whole body present. Take one more breath. Be aware of your whole body as best you can. Take a breath. And then, when you're ready, you can open your eyes.
Thank you, Catherine. So as Catherine mentioned, our focus for today is joy in everyday life. We're going to take time to appreciate 3 artworks and focus on the transition of light and colour. We're going to invite you to observe closely, reflect on your senses, and to become more aware of moments in every day that we can feel present. We'll transition to our first work. And I invite you to take time to survey the artwork. To look closely. Identify things that you see. You may notice the arrangement of flowers. The exquisite detail. The texture of the petals. Do you see the arrangement as being formal or casually placed into the vase? You may notice that some of the flowers are slightly wilting. Perhaps they've been casually popped into the vase and unable to reach the water. The range of colours in the flowers, from a deep indigo or purple to a raspberry or even blueberry tone. You'll notice the leaves. They haven't been cut off, but allowed to fill the vase. You'll notice some leaves are turned up and others have turned down. Taking note of a everyday arrangement that may be on someone's sideboard. Or bedside table, or perhaps just a bench in the kitchen. You'll notice the beautiful blue glass vase. The reflection marks in it of where the light falls upon the vase. I'm sure you've noticed the basket of fruit, the plentiful supply of fresh and ripe fruit in a handmade basket. You'll notice the colours of green, yellow, and red. Perhaps you may have a basket of fruit in your kitchen. Do these look like apples and pears that you see when you go shopping? Or do these look like heirloom varieties? There's the 2 apples that have been placed outside of the basket. They sit on the wooden bench or table. And you can see the subtle shadow underneath them. You'll notice the white ceramic sugar jar. It's decorative and sitting there isolated without its teapot or milk jug. Perhaps beyond the frame is the teapot. And then we draw our attention to the lacquer tray with the carefully divided mandarin. We invite you to imagine being present here in this very quiet and perhaps everyday scene. We want you to feel your body and your breath, and imagine if you were here with this piece, what would you smell? What would you like to taste? Are you halfway through the mandarin? Tasting the citrus, the sweet and the sour. Or are you drinking a cup of tea that's beyond the frame? This work is all about the senses, awakening our appreciation of what it would be like to touch the surface of the apples or pears, or the coolness of the ceramic jar, or the texture of the flowers. So we're going to invite you to share with Catherine, if you were sitting at home, what perhaps might you have on your table or your bench? What would you smell? What would you touch? And what would you be seeing?
We have someone saying a book or two would be on their shelf. A similar display of fruit and vegetables. A fruit bowl, green pears, love the smell. Also coffee machines, so the smell of coffee grounds. Some bananas that are about to go off. My favorite objects. Warm, fragrant candles. Ornaments, candles, cooking books, odds and ends of everyday life, cup of coffee. We've got another fruit, bananas, pears, grapes, and an aromatherapy burner. Books that are waiting to be read. This was at my home. I'd be worried that the tray was going to drop, so I'd touch that first before I could notice other things. That's interesting, Rhonda. I thought the same thing, that the tray was a little precariously placed on the table. We have fresh mandarins from our tree. The smell is so rich and different to shop purchased varieties. I love the smell of mandarins. A treasured picture of my grandmother. So lovely images.
Beautiful responses. And perhaps when we focus on this work and we're made aware of that tray that is precariously on the edge, perhaps we've interrupted someone and they've had to move away. Perhaps the artist has placed the tray there as a symbol, as the balancing act of life. In this very beautiful and elegant still life, it reminds us of the cycle of life. These fresh flowers, which are so perfect, with a few just starting to wilt. And the fruit here, prime and fresh. Will be like this, but not forever. And so we're here in a moment in time where we smell the freshness, we can feel the life in these objects or these organic materials that really give us sustenance and joy for our body, for our senses, and for our mind.
We have another comment, Danielle, as well, in terms of the smells of kitchen baking. So again, I think calling upon those senses.
And they're the sorts of rituals that we have in our everyday life. I'd really invite people to consider that perhaps we're seeing an image of somebody's morning ritual here. Perhaps they have a cup of tea or cup of coffee, enjoy fresh fruit. They've gone into their garden. Or perhaps they've been a gift and casually arranged. We all have rituals in our daily life. And those rituals can be associated with sensory experiences. So when we look at this work, be aware of your breath. Imagine you're going to reach out and take one of those pieces. And being these heirloom varieties, they have a magnificent smell.
We have a comment, Danielle. My place is so empty and barren. Perhaps I could get some nice things and arrange them nicely like this person has done. So some inspiration there.
Yes, I think the objects in this composition have been purposely arranged. They've been arranged to give our eyes a sense of pleasure. So our eyes dance around the triangle that has been formed here for us to appreciate and enjoy and hopefully be inspired, perhaps to gather some objects in our daily life and create our own arrangements. And sometimes arrangements can bring back memories or feelings. So you might be able to curate a collection of objects that bring memories of well-being or positive experiences for you.
We have another comment as well from an attendee who is saying it creates a sense of anticipation.
Oh, that's interesting. And so we might invite people to share if they were going to create an arrangement, perhaps what would they include and what would they title their work?
Afternoon pick-me-up. Sunday afternoon. Which again, I guess I think the day kind of speaks to that sort of day of leisure, taking time out just by virtue of the fact that it's Sunday.
Yes. And often we associate flowers with celebration of milestones in our lives, of events, and a way to say thank you.
We have quite a few comments coming in now. This quiet moment. I like these natural things, so perhaps I could pick some leaves. Produce from my summer garden, watermelon, tomatoes, cucumbers, lettuce, roses, abundance, objects that bring joy, the finer things in life, an arrangement of flowers, fruit, candles, and books, a cut cake with crumbs, fresh coffee. I could call it winter, homemade breads and cheese, a coffee cup, a plant in a pot, books. Lots of references to coffee.
So I'm going to share the artist and the name of the artwork. So it's a work by Henri Fantin-Latour, and it has a very simple title of Flowers and Fruit. It was painted in 1866. And we've spent some time here engaging with it, with a scene perhaps from an everyday arrangement in a studio, in the artist's studio. And I want you to consider, with this realistic technique, the time that the artist has invested in this composition. At times we may spend time looking at artwork for only a few moments. And it's interesting to consider that an artist may spend days and weeks and months on a composition that they have taken time out to just observe, take note, and that composition has inspired or meant something to them. So again, this work being well over 100 years old, a contemporary version of this, as many people have shared, could be a coffee machine in the background somewhere, perhaps an arrangement of Australian native flowers, and perhaps some native and some tropical fruits that grow in Australia.
We also have some other titles that have come in from the attendees. Blast of My Senses, Light and Joy.
They're beautiful. We're going to transition to our second work. And I will do that now. We invite you again to take time to observe closely. You may observe that this work is more textured. It's perhaps not as crisp as the previous. You may notice the subtle tones. The different greens. You may see an olive green, an emerald green, or even flicks of a lime green. Flickered throughout the composition. You'll see those greens in her skirt, the underside of her hat, the hat on the wall, and flickered throughout the background. Take note of the figure. Take note of the shaft of light upon her back. Perhaps there's a large window or a door that's open and the strong sun is coming through. Take time to be aware of your breath. And imagine taking the place of this figure. Standing with the sun on your back. In front of a basin. Imagine, what is she doing? Perhaps, what would we hear if we were in the room with her? Would we hear the tap running? Are her hands in the water? She's having a sensory experience of the water running, her hands moving through the water. She's being present. She's standing there, feeling her figure, her body, her hands in the water, the sun on her back, the wide brim hat on her head. Look around the space. What do you notice? Up high, out of reach, are a collection of jars, I wonder what's in there. I'd like to invite you to imagine a narrative to accompany this work. I want you to imagine and perhaps share with Catherine what you think this figure has been doing or is doing.
We have a comment. This image makes me feel like an early Saturday morning. I listen to my Nana washing clothes by hand while humming a song. I can hear birds, people on bicycles, and pedestrians heading toward the markets. It's a simple and mindful life. There's another comment. Is that a dog sitting to the right? And another one. It is a lovely sunny day, and it is a great day to get the washing done.
Yes, that could be a dog in the corner. It could be a number of things. If you see a dog, it's a dog. If you see an arrangement of clothing, it's an arrangement of clothing.
I was thinking it was an outdoor kitchen, says another attendee. And another can hear the bubbles popping in the sink and smell the clean dishwashing liquid. She's been outside picking fruit or herbs in the yard and is rinsing them to prepare to eat. Washing downstairs with the sun on my back. After a morning in the garden, she washes potatoes. I think she's doing small hand washing in cold water.
Thank you for sharing those. Again, these are everyday rituals that people will experience. At times, artists will focus on the everyday moments in people's experiences that unify us, that connect us. We all can connect to washing our hands or washing food or prepare something. These are ways that we can have shared experiences that connect us all.
We have someone saying, this reminds me of my grandma. She's washing clothes, her hat on, ready to hang up the clothes. My first reaction was barked knuckles on the cement trough. And then someone else has commented, that mindful moment.
You'll also notice that, as I mentioned earlier, the texture of the work. That the work has been created with marks or dabs of colour rather than very sharp outlines of created through line.
This image takes me to an outdoor washing area in Africa, rustic and ordinary, says Maxine. I noticed that her hat and the top of her sweater sort of merge in with the background almost.
Yes, it's very subtle. I'll share with you, well, actually, before I share with you the name of the artwork, perhaps we'll invite you to compose your own title or imagine your own title.
Someone has said, May has said, I noticed the shoes, just slip-ons.
Yes.
Washing day. Grounded.
I do
Hot day. Oh, sorry. Hot day in the wash house. Hang on, kids. I'll be with you in a minute. Summer's first day. Early chores. Simple life.
I do like the title Grounding. And I think the artist here has shed light, literally has created an artwork to elevate the humble experience of an everyday task or chore that for many of us becomes a daily ritual, preparing food or tidying something from the garden or washing clothes. It's an everyday task, but at times when we engage with tasks meaningfully, they can bring those tiny moments of joy of hearing the birds outside or noticing the changing colours from the changing light as clouds come by.
And you have another title from Mary Lynn, Joys of the Present Moment. So speaks to what you're talking about, Danielle.
I'll share the details of the work. So the artist is Nils Gren, and I dare say it's a very humble title of Woman at a Wash Tub. And it was painted in 1918 which makes it 98 years old. But then again, it's as relevant today as it was when it was created. It's quite a small work. It's probably about the size of an A4 paper. And again, one of those moments where the artist had obviously probably seen many, many times and thought, this is worthy of being captured, of being remembered, of being celebrated. We'll move to our third work, which again has a very different mood. We'll give you time to observe the work. Take note of the shadows in the photograph. The figure sitting on a balcony or veranda. The figure is on her own. She's taking a few moments out. Take note of the sun on her face, on her profile. The sun on her forearms. And the strong shadows that are cast on the table as well as on the tiled floor. You may notice that she has a particular hairstyle. She's dressed for the day. We can imagine, who is this figure? What is she doing? In this moment, she's enjoying the sun. She feels her body weight in the cane chairs, and her feet on the tiles. Is she about to eat something? I'd like to invite you to imagine, what is she feeling there? What is she about to eat and consume? Imagine what she's taking time out from. And imagine sitting there being her. Being aware of your breath, of your body, and wherever you are now, to observe the light that's coming in.
We have a question from Megan. Is she rolling a cigarette?
She could be. It depends on what you see.
Someone else says, it does look like that's what she's doing. I didn't even notice that before. I thought she was eating a mandarin because of the first artwork. And then we have Kyla, who says she's deep in thought about what her companion said before he got up from the chair next to her and walked off without finishing his cigarette. And we've got another attendee, Fabel. She looks tense.
So taking this time out now is really important. Taking time out for yourself, for herself. Whether she's eating or creating something, she's engaged in a moment.
We have a few more comments. Danielle, she looks like she's rolling spaghetti, tenderly touching a letter from the front during the war. Contemplation, breakfast on the balcony. She seems to be taking a moment before meeting someone. Time to feel secure in the peace of form and light surrounding her.
This work reminds me of taking time out to sit in the winter sun. And again, that joy of being present in every day. Sitting in the sun is available to all of us, and it's, again, another shared experience that we can connect with.
Preoccupied in the moment.
And I suppose this work, being a black and white photograph, does inspire much reflection and contemplation.
We have a few more comments, Danielle. From Tan, timeless, introspective, a moment of tenderness and self-care. And from Manuel, Margaret and Wendy are on a date in Cortona around 6 p.m. just before the sunset. Wendy is taking Margaret to see a play as a surprise. Margaret is taking her time with her pastry, unaware of the schedule for the evening. Anxious, Wendy had gone to pay the bill without even finishing her peach. Margaret, however, doesn't mind. She's still making the best of her dessert, out of her dessert. And the title, A Conflict of Interest.
And my next comment was going to be, this is a perfect work to inspire creative writing or poetry. So I'm very impressed with that very quick typing. That's a beautiful short story, or the beginnings of one. I'll share with you the title and the artist. So the photographer is William Buckle, and the title is Interior 2. And it was created, it was taken between 1938 and 1946. And again, it's a fairly small size photograph, but for the time, quite a large one as well. And again, that circular form on the table can be whatever you imagine it to be. And I do like the continuation from the first piece we looked at. We're going to go to a summary slide that really collates our experience for today. Our focus for our session today has been the joy in the everyday. We've selected artworks that can connect us, to ritual, to life cycles, to the importance of taking note of light and colour in our everyday. We're going to invite you now to select which artwork resonated with you most.
Danielle, while people are voting, we've got a question about the selection of the last artwork. Why did you select the last artwork?
I selected the last artwork because I wanted an experience that grounded our bodies. And I wanted something to inspire us all to do after the session, which is to go and sit in the winter sun, to be in the moment. And really, when you do that, is to take note of the light and shadow wherever you are, whether it's in a courtyard or in a garden, or if you do go for a walk. Notice how the light changes, how the colours are impacted by the light that you're experiencing. And what you'll notice is that no one time of the day will ever be the same. And it really brings us back to that experience of being in the moment, of feeling the world with your body. And that's why I chose that work. And also because it had that single piece of fruit that I thought would connect us to the flowers and fruit from the first work. Wow, that's very, very interesting. I hope you can all see the poll. And which work resonated with you most. We have 43% of people who participated in this vote for the third work.
We also have a comment, beautiful, a fantastic choice, Danielle, with reference to the third work.
Oh, good. Well, thank you for sharing your choices and those experiences.
Sorry, Danielle, we have a question for us, I guess. Do people often resonate most with the last work? Which is sort of interesting comment in terms of that primacy or recency effect. And I can't remember last time whether we had a preference for the last work. Do you?
I think last time there was a preference for the olive cotton, which was the second. But often in this experience, by the time we get to our third work, for most people, they are at a point of calmness, and their eyes and their experience and their body is attuned to being open to reading these works in the moment. So often it can be that if we change the placement of the work, you could have a different experience. And if we did this session tomorrow, you could have a totally different experience again, because we will be in a different moment. We have about a minute left. So what I'd like to do is to invite you all to create a response to the artwork or the theme that we experienced today. So again, as we encouraged last week, and we have had a few responses, we'd invite you to perhaps create a quick sketch of an idea, a drawing of a view outside, perhaps you in the sun, or just the shadows that you see after this session. And to share your responses via email with culturedose@blackdog.org.au, or via the listed here social media or Facebook page events. The Art Gallery of New South Wales will post this art set, so you can go back and revisit these artworks, find out a little bit more about the artists and the period when they were created. And also, again, share this experience with other people, perhaps guide them through that very mindful viewing experience. And again, I wish to thank you all for taking time out together with us. We trust that you had an experience that has allowed you to become more aware of small moments of joy in every day. And again, as we've mentioned, take note of the changing light and colour around you. And I also thank Catherine for being part of moderating our session today. And we have a survey that will pop up in your browser a few moments after this experience. So we do welcome your feedback and do encourage you to take a few moments to fill that out, which can inform our future development of our program. And our next session will be focused on the theme of imagining in colour. So we hope that you join us and take part in our future episodes of Culture Dose.